Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. I am joined by one of, if not the biggest, Rhode Island Star Wars superfan, Sousa Grapentine. Thank you for coming
Thank you,
in
Kate.
today.
The honor's mine.
You've got the lightsaber tie on.
Oh, yes.
You are ready to go. You have not seen The Last Jedi yet, but
I have not.
you have been looking forward to this ever since knowing it was coming out.
Absolutely.
So tell viewers just how important this movie is to you as a Star Wars fan, what you've heard so far, because when are you going to go see it?
So I'm probably actually going to see it Sunday, which, it's heresy because people usually see it on the first 24 hours or the first showing. But the fact is I want to get my 7-movie marathon in, see all the prequels, the original series, and The Force Awakens before I indulge on the new movie.
So have you been listening to the reaction of folks? It's gotten rave
Oh,
reviews so
absolutely.
far. And are there spoiler alerts when people are giving reviews of the movie? So have you been
There are.
trying hard not to find out what actually
Oh,
happens?
absolutely. And I'm not going to spoil anything here, but let me tell you, I'm someone who, I am a fan of the prequels, I am a fan of the original series, and I wasn't even born when the original series came out. But let me tell you, my family owned a video store. So, growing up with movies and, especially in the 80s, you saw, VHS and discs, and I caught up on all that. Sometimes just on televisions, they'd have marathons.
And you watch them again and again and again and
Absolutely.
again.
And then they had the special editions, which changed a few things around, but it was so easy to be, born in the 80s, grow up in the 90s, and actually get into Star Wars fan as if you were in 77.
So let's talk a little bit about the existing Star Wars fan
Sure.
base, because one of the important facets of this movie, which we talked a little bit about in the green room before you're coming in, the role of Carrie Fisher and the passing of Carrie Fisher
Oh, yes.
as Princess Leia. As Commander, is that, I'm a Star Wars neophyte, what's the role she's taken against the Resistance?
She's the leader of the Resistance, General Leia, and Commander of the Resistance, and it's amazing because she has always had a balance of regal royalty and also a tough chick. Wonder Woman wasn't the first, tough female character, or Linda Hamilton in Terminator. You had Carrie Fisher in the 70s, and she was always fan-friendly. You heard stories before her passing of going to conventions. She loved that. She loved the fans. And the thing is, it was just after Christmas when Rogue One came out last year, the first sort of non-trilogy Star Wars film, and that did very well too. And it was so tough because they just killed off Han Solo in the last film, and I think that this movie is going to be a real treat. I've even heard people should stay till after the credits for a very big tribute to Carrie
Oh,
Fisher.
stay after the credits. So there was a little spoiler, but in a good way to let you know.
Yes.
Don't pack up and head out
No,
to dinner.
no.
Stick around for that Carrie Fisher tribute. So you're going to go on Sunday.
I am.
So I'm assuming you're going to watch from a chronological from the
Correct.
prequel?
Not a release date.
Not a release date. Was this, talk with us again for someone who knows it from a very basic level. This
Sure.
was always the intended rollout of this Star Wars series.
Always.
The middle, the beginning,
Right.
the end. Now, this is the second in the sequel series. And there's actually, on the books, the third planned for next year.
There is, and it's very interesting because when it was under 20th Century Fox, they seemed to release them every 3 years. The
Okay.
prequels and the original series released in 77, 80, and 83. That was Return of the Jedi. And then 99, 2002, and 2005. Disney, since their acquisition, their $4 billion acquisition of Star Wars, they ended up getting, more like Marvel, releasing a movie every year and the trilogy every 2 years.
And how do you think that's affected? Has it just energized the fan base to be able to have, but what happens when we run out? Do you think
Well,
there'll be more?
I don't think we're ever going to run out. Honestly, Disney knows, Disney, who just bought 21st Century Fox this week, they know a good deal when they see it.
Yeah.
There are such a big number of characters, such a world's old stories, new stories, sequels, prequels, midquels. One of the things I love about Star Wars is that it takes mythology and it takes science fiction. So you have like a mythology of, like, say, Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, but you have the technology of Star Trek, and it puts them in the same universe. How hard was that? George Lucas was actually a fan of Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was a philosopher. He wrote something called The Power of Myth, and it basically talks about how in all stories, everything from the Bible to fantasy stories we read today, they have a lot of the same themes. They have father-son issues. They have mentor training young people into, maturation. And that's one of the things that makes Star Wars really, it's like modern-day fables.
So it just builds on an existing, a tried and true formula, if you will. And let's talk a little bit about that next generation of Star Wars fan.
Absolutely.
Because here we are, we're coming out with a great new set of dynamic characters. We talk about, yes, giving the homage, the honor in Carrie Fisher at the end of this one.
Sure.
But is this series really growing a new base of Star Wars fans?
I do, and I think that the heart of that is Rey, Kylo Ren, and Poe. And you see characters, and Finn, of course. Finn was actually a stormtrooper, and who, in the last film, as people will remember, he turned to the Resistance. But I think what's really interesting is this isn't just about the Skywalkers anymore. People wonder, is Rey a Skywalker? Is she related to Obi-Wan Kenobi? But whatever the answer is, and we may or may not find out in this film, the fact of the matter is there are new characters, there are new stories to be told, all around good versus evil, the Force versus the dark side, and new characters that have their own motivations that are bringing them to the plots we see in the film.
So we do know that there is going to be that third film in the sequel series coming out next year, but as you said, you still think there's going to be more. Do we have any indications what that could possibly be beyond the third movie in the trilogy series?
Well, we do, actually. In fact, I've already read online that there are a fourth trilogy planned. There is a fourth
there is a
trilogy.
fourth trilogy planned.
Correct. And they're not saying what it is about yet. But I'm absolutely sure, just like there are multiple stories that can come out of, say, one brand, Star Wars is the one for this generation to do it. And they don't have, unlike Marvel, unlike DC, they don't have comic books that come out every month. They do have comic books, but they don't need it.
Okay.
It's just those original characters that are so relatable with good life lessons, too.
Now let's talk about the, as Mel Brooks said, the merchandising side of things.
Oh.
You said how much Star Wars memorabilia do you have?
So I have roughly 40 boxes of Star Wars collectibles. I've accrued since the 90s. Most of them mint in box. Some of them opened and enjoyed.
Because that's where the value is in the box.
Oh, I intend never to sell.
But never to sell. It's invaluable.
True.
Okay.
And I will say that one of the things I do is the Lego sets. Those are challenging and fun, and actually we all have stress, right? That's some stress.
So you unwind. Oh, there's no stress.
Absolutely.
I am going to get a Lego set for Star Wars and
You
unwind.
Have you seen the Lego selection? They have.
I have not.
They have ones that can be up to $1,000.
$1,000 Lego sets. I mean, they have really cornered the market. How do you decide what to, do you look at Legos? I mean, what do you buy from the new stuff? I remember the old stuff. I'm a little older than you, so I remember that first generation of Star Wars toys. What is it that you look to when, especially the new movies come out, that say, this kind of might have some value, at least personally to me?
Well, other than Lego sets where you get for the size and the challenge, you go for the characters, or the female characters are usually tougher to find because less are made in obviously boys' toys of female characters. But with Rey being a main character,
very
that hasn't
strong
happened.
female character,
Really
appealing to that female base. Have you gotten anything from the new movie yet?
Actually, no, I'm just waiting for that for Christmas. But I will say, I'd love to say my favorite Christmas gift that was Star Wars. It was the 2004 Darth Vader voice-changing helmet. Back then, they didn't just make masks. They made full-on helmets just like the movie, and made by our local company, Hasbro, huh?
Fantastic. I remember having the lightsaber back in the day in the 80s that you had to wave back and forth to actually make the wind noise coming. I am that old.
Wow.
I am that old.
No, you don't look it.
You've got the lightsaber tie. How many Star Wars ties do you have?
This is actually my only one. But I do have a sweater.
Okay. So when are you going to start watching? Tomorrow through before you go on Sunday? When are you going to start the binge
Well, I'm
watching?
actually going to New York City tomorrow, so enjoying some Christmas in New York. But I will start Sunday bright and early, and probably by Sunday evening, I will the Force will awaken, and I will be lucky to see the movie number 8 in the series.
Very good. And so what we're hearing, obviously, mammoth opening weekend for Star Wars. Is it projected to break records?
It is. I think so far what I read, it is the second highest opening behind The Force Awakens. So The Last Jedi actually beat Harry Potter in its preview showings.
Very good. We see a lot of times the movie industry, other movies as well, kind of struggling in this day and age with so many options. But does Star Wars just transcend that the fan base and the movie going base that you can watch it on your DVD at home, but the actual going to the theater and seeing it in the theater perspective.
Oh yes, and I always try to see it in IMAX because that's my.
I was going to
favorite.
ask you about that. Okay.
Yes. But I will say, this is the movie that spans generation. Grandparents take their grandkids. It spans 3 generations. I wouldn't be surprised if 4 generations are actually connected to Star Wars. And one of the stories I read this year, way before the movie came out, there was a sick young boy that his last wish was to see the new Star Wars movie. And he got it. And that's why people love Star Wars. It's something to hold on to. Its message is so powerful. It resonates with people. Do or do not, there is no try. I mean, the words of Yoda. But it's all about mentorship. It's all about, fighting for something you believe in, and, having friends, being a good friend to guide you through the hard times, because, who can't relate to, we may not have to blow up space stations and Death Stars, but we all have challenges, and that's something that everyone can relate to.
So I appreciate your coming in again, knowing I said I hit you and I said I know you're a super fan. But do you have any sort of super fan stories from either having gone to a con or just? I would love for you to be able to share them with viewers.
So I would say 2 of my biggest Star Wars stories. I've always had a ticket from the first showing at a showcase since the 1997 re-releases of the special editions in theaters. I would say my 2 biggest experiences, one was in Colorado. It was the Star Wars convention, and it was in 1999, right before the prequels were released. I was able to meet Ray Park, who played Darth Maul, and I was able to meet a number of other actors. It was at believe it or not, an air hangar and an air museum in Denver. And then Disney World did something similar 2 years later, where they had basically Star Wars Weekend. They've since gotten rid of that. But for all the Disney fans out there, they are going to build a whole new Star Tours in Disney World. I think they've already started construction. So I think that just the fact that I was lucky enough to travel across the country, in different parts of the country, to these events, it makes it even more special. And I went, by the way, with 3 generations. I went with my grandmother, went with my parents. It's good stuff.
Fantastic. Now, are you such a purist? Do you go by yourself and don't talk with anyone, or do you have a movie-going partner to go with you on Sunday?
I will see it as many times as I can with whoever wants to go.
The superfan, Will Sousa Grapentine, I appreciate your coming in. Anything else you want to share with folks while you're in studio here?
Well, I just think that people need to realize that Star Wars is more than a movie. It transcends film, and I think that tied to it are things we can believe in, things we can understand as not just a plot in a movie, but life lessons to get us through hard times.
Well, you're going to go on Sunday. I hope to see it when it's in the theaters. I have a feeling I might be one of those kind of Christmas breaky type of people.
Sure,
but
sure.
It's very, very popular, so buy
it's
tickets
not
online.
Going anywhere.
Oh, I know.
It's not going anywhere.
Have you bought your tickets yet for Sunday?
Of course.
Of course. You can be sure to get your tickets ahead of time. But again, 40 boxes. Where do you keep all of this stuff?
Storage.
You keep it in storage. Anything out of storage?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a box of specifically Star Wars Christmas ornaments that I put in my tree.
So Will's, is the tree up? Are the ornaments up?
Not yet, nope.
Not yet. The movie's coming out, the ornaments are going up. Star Wars The Last Jedi opening this weekend, already opened. Again, to big numbers, we're going to keep an eye on it, but wanted a super fan's perspective to come on in here to tell us from the prequel to the originals to the sequel and then even more. So Will, I appreciate you taking the time to come into the studio.
Thank you, Kate.
I'll let you go around the corner.
May the Force be with you.
As I said, you know the joke as the Catholic, and also with you. Okay, Will Sousa Grapentine, I just butchered that Star Wars joke because, of course, it's just within the Catholic tradition. But we appreciate everyone tuning in here to Go Local as we wrap up another week. We're expecting some snow, so we do hope that, folks, if you are hitting the road for commuting or traveling, please be safe out there. Keep an eye on the weather. But be sure to tune in to us back on Monday, Business Monday. Josh Fenton will be here in the studio. Molly O'Brien will be back with Lifestyle. But wishing everyone a good early start to the weekend. We appreciate your watching. We appreciate your feedback. Be sure to tune in to Go Local Prov online over the weekend. And again, we'll see you next week. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. Kate Nagel. Kate Nagel. Kate Nagel.